Hello, friends from Five Reasons. Welcome back to our Marlins report. We spent 2 weeks off. I guess we had 2 weeks off. Like the Marlins are taking the free agency off. We had to take a little bit off as well. So welcome back to the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us today. And today with me, I have David and Christian Chase. As usual, we might have some other people coming in these Marlins reports around the season. We'll see. Maybe when the spring training starts. I know Jazz Santana was there. Jose Ana, our friend from Fish Bros, is there too. Christian Pupo, they all want to be here. Manny, who's a Yankees fan, is probably very happy with the DJ LeMahieu signing today. But we don't care about the Yankees. I told him this is not a Yankees town. He's a Yankees, Eagles. He's all over the place. He's a Gators. I don't know. He just wants to have a team in each city, I guess. But nah, never mind. How are you guys? Happy New Year and welcome back to Marlins Report.
Doing well, man. Thanks for jumping back on here. Happy New Year, obviously. It's been a quiet time since the Marlins brought in Kim Ang, and they've been very patient. They've been very measured in their approach. I mean, there was some news today, which I'm sure we're going to get into, but that's the nature of the baseball offseason, right? It doesn't all happen at once like it does in the NBA or in the NFL. So it's about patience. The Marlins were slow in the last offseason before bringing in guys like Corey Dickerson and Jesus Aguilar, right? So we just got to let them do what they're going to do.
Right. How are you, Christian? Welcome back. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year, guys. It's good to finally talk about the Marlins again. I've been waiting for stuff to happen. I've even branched out into general MLB stuff because I'm just bored of what's going on with the Marlins right now. It's not bad by any means, but it seems Kim Ng's taking the slower path, signing cheap options to fill the holes rather than going, on the big free agent market that we talked about in our last episode before the new year. I don't think we're out of contention for a big name. I mean, we got Wilson Contreras, maybe. I mean, those rumors are big. But right now it's looking like we're going to see a pretty similar team to last year. So I'm a little worried as to how well they can hold up in 62.
Yeah. The thing is, it's so hard for the Marlins right now because the most important free agents are still out there, right? It's Bauer, Israel Muto, Springer. So you have to they have to sign first, and then the rest of the players are gonna start signing. I mean, of course, we've seen different deals here and there, but it's hard for teams like the Marlins to actually jump on somebody when they don't know how the market's gonna be, because they might end up with a very good player not paying as much as they would if they sign him right now. So we'll see what happens with that. But today we have some Marlins news. This is a Marlins report, so we're gonna start with the Marlins. Some international signings, right? We did sign the top 10 international prospect today. He did talk as well. And this is interesting because for the Marlins, I mean, we remember the Mesa brothers have not worked out so far, right? Was one of that was a very aggressive by the Marlins. I think they started very aggressive. Then they saw maybe we should think it a little bit more calmly, right? And maybe we should not spend just the money on one guy and expect to have a star on this guy. So what do you guys think, or what are the names coming up on these international signings made today? Remember, these are the ones that were supposed to be made last year in July the 2nd. They moved the date to today, to January the 15th. So these are last year's signings, if you will.
Yeah. So they signed 11 free agents today. And the headliner, I mean, really the guy that everybody's talking about is the 18-year-old Cuban shortstop, Yiddy Cappy. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name, but hopefully it's
however you want to say it.
Yeah. But he's kind of the headliner. He, as you mentioned, he's a consensus top 10 international prospect. Baseball America had Yiddy Cappy at the number 4 overall international prospect. MLB Pipeline had him coming in at number 10. And, so what we got here today is, the Marlins deepening an already deep farm system. They were a little shallow on the shortstop end. Some of the middle infielders. I mean, I know that they have Jose Devers, who's still in the system, obviously, but they don't have a ton of talent behind him, So bringing in a guy like Cappy, he's 6'3". He's been playing with the Cuban national team for about 2 years now. The scouting reports say that he is a spectacular defender, that he is a glove first prospect who, has very good speed. He's good with the bat in terms of contact. He doesn't really have power yet, but his frame is thin. Like he's built in the same sort of way that like Derek Jeter was built or Carlos Correa was built from a physical perspective. So the power may come, but all of the reports early on are that he's had really good speed. He's got a solid glove, and the bat can make contact. There's not any power there yet. He's got great range, they say. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm assuming he's, no higher than A ball, right? I know that they shuffled around the minor league setup. So, he's going to start on the low end of the system. Does he work his way through the system faster than the other guys that you mentioned, than the Mesa brothers?
Yeah.
We'll see. But he's really the headliner. They signed 10 other guys. I think 6 of those other 10 maybe came from Venezuela. They had, it looks like 3 pitchers, 2 catchers, 4 pitchers, 2 catchers, an outfielder, and then a couple other infielders. So they're just kind of spreading things around. The bulk of the international signing bonus money, which teams were not allowed to trade this year, they have been able to trade it in years past. Most of it actually went to Yiddy Cappy. They say that he signed today for a $3.5 million signing bonus. So the rest of that money, almost $3 million, had to be spread between the other 10 guys. Okay. So, it'll be interesting to see, where he ends up in the system to start and how quickly he can move through the system. But, it was a good day. It was the worst kept secret because people knew that the Marlins were going to sign him, back over last summer, I guess.
Like we said, these signings were supposed to happen in July, so it's just they had to wait 6 more months. The Marlins are signing a lot of infielders. I remember last year they signed another guy from Venezuela, Salas. He actually got to play on the Winter League this season, and they also have Devers, as you mentioned. So there's a lot of shortstops coming up in the system. Of course, they're not all gonna get up to the first team, so they might be even involved in some trades that are being talked about around MLB, and we're gonna go over that. So, Christian, besides these signings, we did have some re-signings or arbitrations that got settled today for the Marlins, important players for the roster in 2020 that are coming back this season. Do you have the list with you? And let's go over it.
I do. Let me pull up the list. But while I do, I think I just want to talk about the international for a second.
Yes, go ahead.
The Yiddy Cappy. Whenever I hear a really good defensive shortstop, I get flashbacks to Aditi Echeverria, and I get a little afraid. But I think it's a solid move. I mean, them signing all these international players and deepening the farm system continually shows where the Marlins are right now. They're not going to be a World Series competitor this year, as much as we want them to be. I think every single move that has been made since Kim Ng has been the general manager is leading towards a 3 to 4 year turnaround where we see a consistent playoff team. So this year, I don't know if we can expect anything past maybe a first round exit or even, being fourth in a really, 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 really tough NL East.
We're going to edit this video. We're going to play it for you when we make it to the National League.
It'll be a clip. And I hope that happens. But those are just my thoughts on that. I think it's a fine situation to be in. I don't know if this team is ready to win yet. So I think the decision or the moves that have been made are fine. The re-signings are obviously really solid. I mean, we saw Jorge Alfaro, Brian Anderson. Who else was on that list?
The bullpen guys, Richard Blyer, Yimi Garcia, and Adam Simbar.
Right. Those are key central parts to our team last year, and they're going to be key central parts to this team in the upcoming years, especially guys like Brian Anderson, Jorge Alfaro, if he can turn it around. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, Sandy Leone called up to take control of that catcher's position if he can develop a relationship with Sandy. And all the young pitchers that we saw with Chad Wallach. I mean, defensively, Sandy Leon is way better than Chad Wallach. And if we were starting Chad Wallach solely for his defense, Sandy Leon has to be considered. So I think that's super important. The Brian Anderson, I mean, he's going to be a mainstay on this team for many years to come, and to get him back feels amazing.
I think it was a good sign. Talking about Brian Anderson, it was a good sign that he got such a pay raise. He got a hefty raise from where he was before. They agreed to a $3.8 million deal. So again, that's a good sign, especially coming off, what Kim Ang had said in some of her initial press conferences about wanting to hold off on an extension for Anderson. This keeps those lines of communication open, especially because, again, it's a nice raise that he's getting.
Yeah, and that's interesting because what she said, right? She's like, no, we're not going to give him an extension right now. We want to see him perform again before we do so. And so that leaves the door open even for a trade. You never know. Like, if you can bring a guy that's going to make the difference, why not? I mean, I don't think there are a lot of players that you can just hold on to them because, oh, no, this is going to be the face of the franchise. No, I mean, we are on a moment right now in which the Marlins are kind of free to trade anybody and
everyone's on the trade block.
Maybe just the young arms like Sixto and Sandy would be the only two that I would say, no, these are not tradables. The rest of the team, you look at them, and even Starling Marte is going to be the star of the team this year. He has only 1 year left in the contract, so he's actually one of the guys that if things are not going well, he's going to be traded so we can get some prospects back. So it's interesting. We've seen a lot of movement, a lot of talks, not a lot of contracts, but a lot of talk in the off season so far. And two rumors very important for the Marlins. The first one, Wilson Contreras, right? He's under control still by the Cubs. He's probably gonna win around or earn around $6 million this year on arbitration as well. So it's not very expensive. It's not a very expensive asset anyway. He could be involved in the trade. We know the Cubs are just all over the place, just selling everybody. Schwarber's not there. They put Brian in the market. They put Contreras in the market. Darvish was shipped off to San Diego. So how do you guys feel about Wilson Contreras? Do you want to have him? Would you rather have an experienced guy like Yari Molina? You want to go back to Alfaro and give him one more shot? Real Muto still something to consider for you guys, or what do you think?
For me, Contreras would solve a lot of those problems that we saw a year ago with inconsistency from the catcher position. I think he would absolutely be an upgrade over Jorge Alfaro, although by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that we just discard Jorge Alfaro. I think, there's a good major league player in there somewhere. It's just a matter of finding that consistency. And we know, Chad Wallach has his limitations. He's a backup catcher. He is a defensive catcher, once every 5 days sort of guy. He's not a playoff catcher. So if they could bring in a guy like Wilson Contreras, I know Craig Mish, who's over at Sports Grid, he has the Swings and Misses podcast, which actually started on the 5 Reasons Sports Network once upon a time.
Ooh, let's not go there.
Yeah, he was the one that reported that there were some talks between the Marlins and the Cubs, and the Cubs, as you mentioned, they're kind of moving into this full-on rebuild, and so they're looking for young prospects. And Cubs fans are asking for Sixto and for all this other, and it's absurd. The Marlins would never pay that sort of price. So when you start looking at the depth of this system, the Marlins have the prospects, the young prospects that they could use in order to make that sort of move, to acquire a guy like Contreras. So it's going to be a matter of, do they pay the price in terms of like the prospects for what the Cubs are looking for? Because I don't think the Cubs are going to really want, major league talent. I don't even know that they would want Alfaro in return.
Well, they need a catcher.
They would need a catcher, yeah.
They don't have one right now.
But it'll be interesting. I would love to see if the Marlins could do that. I'm wondering if, teams that need catchers, and I know the Marlins have catchers, but we would call catcher a need for them. I wonder if everybody's just kind of waiting for Real Muto to sign somewhere.
Yeah,
That's
it's the same
how the
thing.
markets work sometimes. One guy signs and then a bunch of other guys sign. We kind of saw that to a certain extent over the last couple of days with the relief pitchers. One relief pitcher signed, and then all of a sudden 5 guys were off the board, right?
Yeah.
So, Archie Bradley went to Philly, and Brad Hand is being linked to the Mets, and Liam Hendricks went to the White Sox, and Trevor May also went to the Mets. I mean, the Mets are loading up. But
they're still gonna finish behind the Marlins.
I hope so. But so it'll be interesting to see if it's a matter of waiting for a guy like Real Muto to land somewhere, and then maybe that facilitates a deal for Contreras. Because if the Marlins,
that's interesting, because I thought that was going to happen with the James McCann signing with the Mets.
Yeah.
I mean, if James McCann found a team, we thought, okay, Realmuto's coming right away, and it didn't happen. I don't know. Maybe he's asking for a lot of money, and teams are not in position to do that, even though he's the best catcher hitting and defensively in the market. Yeah. So if you want to compete, why not just go and get him? But okay, so what do you think about Contreras, Christian, before we go and talk about Andrew Bentendy?
So I would love Wilson Contreras. And just to clarify, I think Chad Wallach is a 4th-string catcher, not necessarily a 2nd-string catcher. So I mean, would I love to have Wilson Contreras at that cheap price? Like $6 million is great, especially for a catcher of his caliber, right? Yeah. I mean, he's a World Series champion. He provides what we would need in the catcher role. However, the way the Marlins have, in the few signings we've seen, I don't know if it's a reality. Why would we go out and sign Sandy Leon if we didn't expect, if we expected to get Contreras? Maybe it was a preventative measure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a minor league contract anyway, and
it's a minor league contract. But I think he'll.
I think they added Leon for depth. I mean, if you think about what we saw last season, right? When COVID hit and Alfaro was out, and they kind of cycled. Yeah, they cycled through catchers. Brian Navarreto and Chad Wallach, and then a handful of other guys. So none of those other guys flashed at all. So you would want to maybe bring in a guy like Sandy Leon to be that 3rd catcher, to be back and forth with AAA, especially since AAA is going to be closer this year. It's going to be in Jacksonville. So that's why I think they brought in Leon. I don't think you stop pursuing a guy like Contreras over the fact that Sandy Leon was signed. I think that was more of a depth signing than anything else.
Yeah,
fair. Okay, cool. I mean, I think it's like weird to have like 3 catchers. I mean, obviously one of them will go down, and Sandy will start in the minors and probably find his way to the major league roster at one point. But I think it just comes to how much trust they have in Alfaro to actually play to his full potential. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a clear message to him. If you don't play him in the playoffs, if you keep bringing catchers, if you read they're talking to Contreras, I mean, I know if you're Alfaro, you have to, okay, these guys just are not happy with what I'm doing here. So
got to fix something.
Yeah, there's something there to fix, and we'll see what happens with the catchers. So another guy that was linked to the Marlins, there was, I think, maybe days before that, it was Adam Duvall and Yasiel Puig, but this one, Andrew Bentendy, seemed to be more of a real possibility for the Marlins, right? And some Major League Baseball teams were saying that they were expecting Bentendy to be traded by the end of this week. So something might come up right after we do this Marlins report. So Andrew Bentendy, another young guy that could really fix a lot of things that the Marlins don't have.
Yeah, he
for average.
Good he would defense. Be a really he would be a really interesting ad. I would love to have a guy like Bentendy. He was actually teammates with Brian Anderson in college over at Arkansas. So there's a relationship there. He's a left-handed bat, and so much of what the Marlins have right now is they're a right hand heavy lineup. I mean, I know that Isan and Jazz are left-handed, but only one of them is going to play at a time, right? So there might only be the one lefty in the lineup. I can't think of another one. But
Corey Dickerson.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Corey Dickerson. So, yeah, but it's still, even then, I mean, you're talking about
Corey Dickerson can be a pinch hitter, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be kind of a revolving door, I think, over in right field. So right field is kind of up in the air. Can Bentendy play over there? Maybe. I know that he's been primarily a left fielder so far, but he would be a really nice add to this offense. But supposedly this talks with the Red Sox never got particularly serious with the Marlins. I think they were just kind of checking in and taking the temperature. Because at least from what I heard and read, the Red Sox were asking for too much. They had too high of a price tag to acquire him. So, I mean, maybe they circle back around and touch base with him again. And again, I would love to have him in a Marlins uniform. But if the price tag is too high, they've got some interesting outfield prospects. So we'll see.
What do you think, Christian? What would be not too high in order to get Bentendy for you?
I mean, I would love Bentendy.
They need pitching, so we know they're gonna go for a couple of maybe 3 arms from a rotation or young guys.
Honestly, anything that doesn't include like the bulk of Sixto, Sandy, and
so would you let Pablo Lopez go, for example?
I would let Pablo Lopez go for Andrew Bentendy. Like if it was just a one-on-one trade, Pablo Lopez for Andrew Bentendy, I would definitely take Andrew Bentendy. He's a perennial 280 hitter who gives you 80 RBIs. Like on the left side of the plate. Like Pablo Lopez wasn't good enough last year to like not take that deal.
Well, he kind of was. I'm not gonna call him our ace, but he was the only one healthy at some point during the season.
Yeah, he pitched really, really well. I mean, the big question with Lopez is, can he do it for the whole season? And that's really the big question mark for this entire Marlins rotation. Are they going to be? I mean, beyond Sandy, none of those guys have pitched an entire season, and Rob Manfred is dead set on 162 games. And even if that's not a good idea, I mean, you're looking at what's happening in the NBA right now with COVID and the post moments and all like that. So, I think they're going to need some flexibility. So dealing from like the major league rotation, I wouldn't be crazy about that. But maybe some of the back end, starting pitching prospects, I wouldn't give them Edward Cabrera because he's supposed to be just as good, if not better than Sixto. But there's a handful of other ones.
Oh, you have to give somebody out. That's
I know. That's what I'm saying. There's a handful of other ones that they might be interested in. Maybe somebody like Nick Neidert, maybe somebody like Braxton Garrett, even maybe Trevor Rogers. Somebody like that. Because I think if the Marlins, if they want to stay in that sort of wild card hunt, if they want to be relevant, if they want to be competitive, they're going to need those major league arms, which I think is part of the reason why they had scouts at Corey Kluber's pitching session
tryout,
this week. So, adding a guy like Corey Kluber in free agency, I mean, I know he's had, a rough 2 years, right, with injuries and things like that, but you're talking about a big time pitcher once upon a time, and somebody who's pitched through an entire season and pitched really, really well. Adding somebody like Corey Kluber would be interesting. Probably a low risk, high reward kind of signing for the Marlins, to kind of flesh out that rotation some. But I probably wouldn't trade for Bentendy from the current rotation right now. Not for me anyway.
Well, maybe the end, right? That's why I say Pablo Lopez, because that would be the guy that the Red Sox can look at, and maybe that's a realistic option. They know the Marlins are not going to get rid of Sandy Alcantara. They know the Marlins are not going to get rid of Sixto Sanchez. So the third guy there right now, it's Pablo Lopez. That might change during the season this year because we have a lot of young arms coming up, and that. But I mean, right now Pablo Lopez is our third guy. So what about the other two that I just mentioned? Adam Duvall, Yasiel Puig, these type of players. I mean, those are two righties. I feel like we have a lot of righties right now on the team. If you bring these type of guys, you have to just say goodbye to Lewis Brinson, maybe say goodbye to Monte Harrison as well, because they're not getting younger. They're like 24, 25 already. It's not like they're young prospects. JJ Bleday is coming too somewhere along the way, so you have to start opening spots for them too. And Harold Ramirez is supposed to be back. We saw him playing. He's going to play in the playoffs down there in Colombia. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should the Marlins bring another guy like Dick? Because they do have Dickerson and for another year, but they're not going to have Matt Joyce. They still have.
I hope they're not going to have Matt
Well,
Joyce.
I'm talking about that type of player. They,
Yeah,
they still have that spot for that type of player, right? That
Yeah.
can play maybe 2 times a week and be a pinch hitter type of player. So I don't know if Ricky, Yasiel Puig or Adam Duvall are options that you guys will maybe consider.
I think there's 2 questions to that. Like, do I want either of those players? Sure. They've had success. They're great hitters. They're a good addition to the outfield. But I don't know how plausible it is. Like, is it plausible is a different question. And I don't know if it will be, especially with the depth, the semi-depth that we have. Lewis Brinson is looking on the up, right? Like, would I get rid of Lewis Brinson for them? Sure. But I don't know. I don't know how plausible it is. So,
it's interesting when you talk through some of this stuff and you look at those names. I know that the Marlins were in on Puig
last year too.
Yeah. Right? And one of the reasons why Puig didn't sign with the Marlins was because he didn't want the pressure of being like the Cuban-born player and the Cuban community that's down here.
Yeah. And he didn't think the Marlins were going to get the playoffs. So
right. So, does he, he had a lost season last year, right? He tested positive for COVID and then ended up not playing with the Braves at all. And so it was kind of a lost season for him. So maybe he does want another shot. Both of those guys, Duvall and Puig, would bring a big bat to the lineup, right? And I would prefer probably Duvall to Puig, even though Puig has such, he's got an electric nature to the way that he plays, and he's got a huge upside. But Duvall has some big time power. You're talking about a guy who, in last season, he hit 16 homers in, the 60 games or whatever. He drove in 33 runs. In his career, he's got 2 seasons over 30 home runs. He hit 37 one year with the Reds. So he's a guy that has power, and that's the thing, probably more than anything else, that this lineup is missing. A big bat that can go deep, right? We saw Duvall hit 3 homers in a game against the Marlins last year. For as good as Aguilar is, he's not that kind of player anymore, and listen, maybe Duvall isn't either. That's part of the reason why the Braves might be letting him go. But the Marlins don't have that potential big bat in the lineup. Brian Anderson isn't going to hit you 40 homers, over 162 games. He'll settle in probably right around 25, right? And that would be a solid output from a home run perspective for him, So I don't think you bring in a guy like Duvall or Puig if he blocks too many. Like, you don't do an extended deal for them, to block some of these prospects.
It's a 1-year deal.
Yeah, a 1-year deal, a show me sort of thing. But I do think that they need to see what they have with Harrison. Brinson is, probably who he is at this point.
Yeah.
But I think there's something more to Marte, between what we saw in kind of like the spring training, the protracted spring training from a year ago, what he did at the AAA level. There's potential there for him to be a big time player if he can consistently hit, because he has all the tools, right? So, but Duvall would be an interesting signing, although I don't know that outfield is kind of where they're going to go with some of this stuff. I know that Kim Ang talked about maybe bringing a bat to this lineup, and Duvall would be that bat, but I'm not sure that he's it.
Yeah, because looking at the lineup right now, the only spots available, you have two guys in first base. You have shortstop in Miguel Rojas, I guess. I mean, you have Brian Anderson in third. So the only maybe open it could be second, but you still have Jazz and
really.
Isan there.
Second base, right field, maybe catcher again.
Maybe
if
catcher, yeah.
somebody like Real Muto, but like there's limited spots. They need access to the DH. Like NL needs to have a DH.
Yeah.
That would be awesome for the Marlins. So let's read some of the comments here as we finish our Marlins report for this week. Alejandro Diaz, my tocayo, is saying, I think develop this year, then next year try for Javi. Javi Baez, I guess, since Lindor's not coming, definitely he's going to the Mets. We haven't talked about it, but all the teams in the division are getting stronger and stronger, and the Marlins are still figuring out what they're going to do. So let's see our friend Jay Walsh. The Marlins won't pay for any high-priced free agent. They are a AAA, but officially an MLB team. Look at this guy. We should ban this guy.
Hey, we made the playoffs last year.
Come on, Mr. Walsh. That was a tough one. They're not gonna spend big time money on free agents.
Yeah. I mean, the Rays are not spending a lot of money, and they got to the World Series. They just signed, by the way, today with Tyler Glasnow, but just like $4 million. That's the only. They're only gonna pay $4 million for Tyler Glasnow. That's unbelievable. They have the secret for eternal life, I guess, down there in Tampa. We have to move to Tampa, I guess. We're gonna start a fire reason in Tampa.
Some good breweries in Tampa.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the signing of Yiri Cape? Well, we talked about him in the beginning of this video, so you can go ahead.
He's a nice prospect. I mean, go back and watch the beginning of the video, for the full discussion, of course. But he's a nice prospect. He's several like 4 years away from the majors.
It's so hard. It's so hard
to predict. It's a good attempt.
Yeah,
I mean, every year the guy that the teams give the most money to, they believe there's going to be a major league player, and most of those guys never make it to the show. So it's really hard to predict this. I mean, Major League Baseball is it's the league where you're like so far away from it by the time you sign, because with basketball, as soon as you sign from college, you know this guy's going to the NBA, and that's it. The same happens with the NCAA. I mean, we saw the national championship game on Monday. You know, half of those guys are for sure going to the NFL next year, and there's no way they're out of it. But with baseball, it's just an hit or miss kind of thing. It's like in real life. If you hit 300, you're great. If 3 out of those 10 prospects every year make it somewhere close to the majors, you're doing a great job, because it's just so many players that you never know. So, I mean, anything else? We have to wait for the free agents. I mean, the big free agents to sign in order for the Marlins, I guess, to keep making moves. But I think they're doing the right thing. They're asking teams for players that might be helpful for this team, and that's another way to do it. I mean, you're not going to spend $300 million on 2 or 3 players. Well, you maybe can trade some of the guys, and now we have something that we didn't have before, which is we have some depth in the minor league system. So you can actually play with that, and we have some of the best team. I mean, we brought Kim Ng, and she has a lot of experience of doing this. So we have to wait. I know it's hard, but we do have to wait. So anything else you guys want to add about the free agency so far? We're going to be trying to do this every week. Or if the Marlins sign somebody, we will go ahead and go live.
Emergency podcast.
Emergency live streaming.
Yeah. No, listen, with the free agent stuff, we got to count. I think we have to count Starling Marte almost as a free agent signing, because they picked up his option, which is not something that we've always, this club doesn't always spend that kind of money. So you can maybe look at Marte almost as the free agent signing. But if you look at what's going on, are they going to sign Real Muto? Probably not, right? Are they going to be in on Springer? No. Are they going to be in on Trevor Bauer? No. But there are some other names that are out there. I mean, I know Ozuna, our old friend Marcell Ozuna, is still hanging around out there.
He's out there,
but they need to add somebody to the back end of that bullpen, right? Yeah. We've seen so many of these relievers come off the market in the recent days. I mean, like I said earlier, Archie Bradley's going to Philly. Brad Hand has been linked to the Mets. Liam Hendricks is going to the White Sox. Trevor May is going to the Mets.
Yeah.
Even our old buddy Ryan Stanek, he signed with the Astros. So, a lot of these relievers are coming off, but there's still some good ones that are available. I mean, Mark Melancon is still out there. Alex Colomé is still out there. Trevor Rosenthal is still out there. Kirby Yates. And then Brandon Kinsler. A lot of the guys that we have seen be successful are still out there. So, maybe that second wave of relief pitchers, as the price tags keep coming down, the Marlins will probably be in on at least one of those guys, I would imagine. I know that they added relievers in the Rule 5 phase, right? But they still need, you need a proven guy on the back end. You can't go into this season.
I would love to see Kinsler again with the Marlins.
Yeah, you can't just go in there with just Yimi Garcia, because as good as Yimi was, he can't do it by himself, right? So they got to add one of these other guys. And then, you mentioned Yadier Molina earlier. I think that would be crazy and it would be a lot of fun. But he's still out there. And then, we talked about Corey Kluber. That would be an interesting name if they could add him. But then there's a few other starting pitchers out there too, like James Paxton is still out there. Masahiro Tanaka is still out there. So there are names that are available that would be a lot of fun for the Marlins to bring in. But their 40-man is full, so they're going to have to drop somebody. Like when they signed Ross Detweiler to add a lefty to that bullpen, they had the DFA Stephen Tarpley, and he actually ended up with the Mets too. The Mets have everybody. So if they do want to bring in one of these free agents, unless it's on a minor league deal, which is unlikely for some of these names, they are going to have to DFA somebody. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of navigate some of this stuff, because I do think they need to bring in, at the very least, they need to bring in a closer. So we'll see. What do you think, Christian?
I don't know if it necessarily has to be a closer. I think Yimi Garcia can fill that role, but he needs the help. I think the Detweiler signing is great. I mean, I wrote about it, but like giving yourself, if he provides a similar statistic to what he normally does, right? He's very similar to Richard Blyer and how they attack and how they treat the art of pitching, right?
Yeah.
So on days where Richard Blyer is resting, we have another guy to do the same thing, which is great. I think that was a good signing for the team. But we do need another bullpen arm. I wouldn't even be mad if we got 2 or 3 bullpen arms.
Yeah.
We need them, right? Whoever it may be, the names you listed off are all viable candidates, and whichever one we do sign, or if we don't sign, but I'll be happy if we do sign them. We need to figure out the catcher situation. It needs to be figured out if we're just going to let Alfaro do it, we need to figure it out. If we're going to get Contreras, get Molina, we need to figure it out. And then we need that veteran in the starting pitching role, just like you said. I don't care who it is. We just need someone to be that 5th guy.
For sure. And we need more hitting. We need to produce more and more runs. I know this team loves pitching, and that's the way they want pitching, running, hitting the ball, small ball. But I don't know if that's going to work for 162. It worked for 60, and barely, because the Marlins.
I mean, it
barely.
So now we'll see what happens. Randy Chambers, our friend, is saying, Marcelo Zuna, please, need some pop in the line.
I'm with you, Randy. I would love to have Marcelo Zuna back with this.
The thing is, right now, since we don't know if we have a DH, it would be Marcelo Zuna left.
Yeah, they would need a DH.
Right. So that would be a very bad defensive lineup, right?
Yeah, they definitely need this team needs a DH. Like, as bad as any National League team has ever needed one, this team needs it.
We need it.
Maybe 2 DHs, because we have Cooper and Aguilar playing first base as well. So we need help there. So thank you guys for joining us. We're going to try to do this weekly, probably on Fridays. But if anything comes up before that, we will be going live here in our Marlins Report in the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe, to give it a thumbs up here in the YouTube, and to turn on the notifications, so every time we go live, you guys get a little boop notification on your phone, your tablet, your computer, whatever you use to enjoy this type of content. So thank you very much for joining us. Have a beautiful weekend here in South Florida if you're here. If you're somewhere else, also have a beautiful weekend, and hopefully on Monday we can talk about some Marlins signs, right? Maybe Benintendi is a Marlin by Monday, hopefully. And
That'd be
for
something.
all of you that are Miami Heat fans, we will be back with more live streamings tomorrow for the pre-game. The Miami Heat playing the Detroit Pistons here in the American Airlines Arena. That game's at 7, right? Start at 7. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Anyway,
I thought maybe 8 o'clock. So
yeah, maybe 1 hour before the game, we will be live with you guys in the pregame. So thank you very much, and we will see you sometime soon next week.